Welcome to Into Africa. My name is Mvemba Dizolele. I'm a senior fellow and the director of the Africa program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. This is a podcast where we talk everything Africa: politics, economics, security, and culture. Welcome. In this episode, we turn our attention to the political and economic crossroads facing Africa's most populous nation, Nigeria. Despite its vast potential, Nigeria continues to grapple with persistent challenges, including youth unemployment, overdependence on oil, and the urgent need for economic diversification. At the heart of these challenges lies the critical issue of government accountability, as millions of Nigerians demand more transparent, responsive, and responsible leadership. The quest for good governance and inclusive growth is now more critical than ever, as the country's vibrant youth population seeks meaningful opportunities for the future. Yet, there are reasons for optimism. Innovative entrepreneurs are redefining business landscapes, social movements are calling for reform, and policymakers are exploring pathways to unlock Nigeria's immense human and natural resources. Joining me to unpack these vital issues is Peter Obi, a distinguished Nigerian businessman and reform-minded politician, best known for his tenure as governor of Anambra State from 2006 to 2014. Renowned for championing good governance and accountability, Obi led sweeping reforms in state finances, education, and healthcare. With a degree from the University of Nigeria and advanced training at Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and the London School of Economics, he has held top executive roles in banking, including as chairman of Fidelity Bank plc. A respected national figure, Obi has served on Nigeria's economic management team, was vice presidential candidate in 2019, and was the Labour Party's presidential candidate in 2023. His leadership is defined by integrity, transparency, and a steadfast commitment to people-centered development, making him one of Nigeria's leading voices for reform and progress. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to Into Africa.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, sir. It's an honor. So you've come a long way to be with us here in Washington, D.C. May I ask what brings you to Washington?
A variety of things. I have invitations from different organizations like yourself. And that's what brought me to Washington. And I had lecture in Johns Hopkins University.
You gave a lecture at the Johns Hopkins University. It's a place that is dear to my heart because I'm affiliated with that university as well as a lecturer. You, sir, have been a long-time advocate for good governance and accountability in Nigeria. What, in your view, are the most urgent reforms needed to restore public trust in Nigeria's government today?
Well, I've always maintained you need to have leaders who are competent, who have the capacity, compassion, and commitment to be transformative. Because when they're competent, they will understand what is required in terms of development. When you were doing introduction, you did mention the ills of the country. So it's like you have said what is the problem. You're sick. You go to the hospital to say, what is the problem? The doctor needs to deal with it. So we need like a political doctor that will deal with those things you mentioned.
You talked about competence, capacity, and compassion, and they need to be committed to transforming the place. One word we don't hear very often in leadership is compassion. Do you care to expand a little bit? What would that look like in the context of government of Nigeria and governance?
Leadership devoid of compassion is no longer leadership, because you have to care about the people. It is that care of the people that makes all the difference. So every day you're thinking about them. A leader is like a doctor who are attending to people in need, especially the vulnerable, because that's the purpose of government. The purpose of government is to care for the poor, the most vulnerable, those in need, and everything. That is why government, in the first place, it is not meant for the rich and the famous. It is about caring for the people. And the leader must think about it 24 hours.
As we care for the people demand change. You have just talked about transformative leadership. Nigeria, you mentioned competence and capacity, but Nigeria is full of smart people with big degrees, experiences in the international arena as well. Where are we failing? I should just put it that way bluntly. Where are we failing?
Well, being able to support less the quality of people I've mentioned. But let me even tell you, degrees and educational qualification is not a measure of integrity or compassion. They're two different things. That you are educated does not make you a leader, because there's so many educated people who are totally incompetent of leadership, who don't have the capacity and compassion and commitment to drive. So these are two things. So educational qualification is not a measure of integrity. It is good to be educated. It is good to remain focused, but we need to look for people. And that is why it is good to look at people's, where are they coming from? So let's not just judge this person on educational qualification. What has he done in the past? Where has he managed? What is it did he do? I always tell people, my background is an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman. I started as a small trader. So I know the problem of a micro trader. I know the problem of a small trader. I know problem of a medium trader. I went into the corporate world where I was director in institutions. So I know the problems they're going through. I was even chairman of Nigerian Exchange Commission. So I know what even happens in the market there. And I've been a governor. So I want people to look at all this and say, well, listen, look at this was it. Because you need the experience. It's not just something we say, oh, because you have PhD or because you're a professor, you do very well. We're not sure whether you have that care.
In that case, then you just introduced another word. We started with competence, capacity, then we talked about compassion. Now you have introduced integrity. How do we build that? You as a governor, you as a trader, as an entrepreneur, as a leader on a board, and so on. How do we foster that integrity?
It starts with you. The leader must hold himself accountable before the people hold him accountable. It starts with you. You must hold yourself accountable before the people hold you accountable. And how do you do that? You must ensure that whatever action you're going to take, whatever you're going to do, the first question as a leader, is it right? Will it benefit the people? Is this for common good? Unexamined life is not worth living. You must examine yourself daily, every minute as a leader. Because you're showing an example. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint. So, but you strive to do the right thing. It's difficult, extremely difficult, but it is for you as a leader, because you're not just a leader, you're also a role model, an example other people will follow. So all these things are critical. So every day you try to do the right thing and everything. Imagine if you go down here now and here I'm fighting on the street. I've lost that. So even if I go down now, somebody said, oh, you're this, you're stupid, you're that. I try to restrain myself, because what am I doing? At that stage, I'm saying, well, listen, this person can't talk to me like this, but I have to restrain myself, because I become a role model. I've become an exemplary person people want to emulate. So the things that I will not be able to do. And that's it.
Nigeria youth make up a majority of the population, yet unemployment remains high. In the context of what you just said, degrees are not enough to be a leader automatically. Leaders, I mean, there's the entire debate of a leader is made, trained. I think it's both. Some come with some qualities. Some of us develop them as we get exposed to situations. What concrete steps should be taken by the government or the private sector to create more sustainable job opportunities? Because that's where our young people will get the experience and also hone those situations where they build compassion and integrity as well.
You must look at what is the critical areas of development. It is education, it is health, and pulling people out of poverty. And how do you pull people out of poverty? You have to look how you can aggressively support your MSME, micro, small, medium enterprises, because that's where the young ones are all over the world, including the first world. The biggest contributor to GDP is just this sector. You need to focus on it. Even if you look at the huge countries like China, today, 60% of their GDP contribution comes from MSMEs. In fact, it's surprising, in the urban areas of China, 80% of the job is from MSMEs. And so is it. Go to Indonesia, they provide almost 90% of the jobs. And because we have youths who are highly entrepreneurial with too much energy, you need to let that energy properly by moving the country from consumption to production, raising these youths properly.
Moving the country from consumption to production, Nigeria, you just said it as well, is known for its entrepreneurship. Nigerians are all over the world. You go to any city in Nigeria, you see that, to use the street term, is people are hustling. The hustle also tend to favor the informal sector. And so people are surviving because the formal opportunities are not always there. So these young people you're talking about who are full of energies and full of ideas, how do we channel their energy and the ideas into the formal sector?
You start with the informal, and you dive into formal. These youths start their engage in the entrepreneurship and build their businesses, their enterprise, everything. It will get a stage where it will be formalized. Even here, just look at how, whether it's Apple, whether it's Microsoft, those are the from garage. You don't go when they're in garage and say they should be formal. No, there's a stage. As they grow, it becomes formalized because they need it. So you don't start from here. As they go on, they see the need to formalize it. First is opposite. Show them that you can build a life by doing the right things.
In that case, then, they need the support of the government. In a lot of African countries, and Nigeria may be different, but you are the expert here, the state itself is viewed as a predatory state.
You need to support them. They need all the support on everything. If you go to Indonesia, for example, the official interest rate is about 12, 13%. But for the MSMEs, it's between 4 and 6. And that is critical. They need all the support they can get. Because you also need them to be able to pull. Imagine getting a system that in Indonesia that provides 90% of employment. You need to invest in it. Pulling people out of poverty is like education and everything. Education is not an expense. It's an investment. The same thing for these people I'm talking. To invest in MSMEs is an investment. Because if the people are running, the country becomes productive. The government generates more revenue from taxes and everything. Because you can't tax people who are unemployed. Can you? You're looking for a job. So it's like you're going to bank account. You pay in first because you want to do withdrawal later. But you can't go and talk about withdrawal when you've not paid anything in. This is what is happening in Africa. They became if you can't even start anything. That's why the youths are running restless, they're running away, nobody's caring for them, nobody's showing them love, nobody's supporting them. They need this support.
So where do we start in a place like Nigeria to start bringing the support so the state is no longer predatory? Because that will remain with us for a long time if we don't change.
You have to give them access to finance. You have to do some trainings, jobs, everything to support, even visiting them, even just encouraging them by just, you're there, you're a leader, and you said, oh, you're doing this. We will just minor support and everything, giving them tax incentive, or from there's so many things you can do.
Security is often an issue in Nigeria. When I travel to Nigeria,
Definitely an issue.
when I travel to Nigeria, my fixer asks, do you want a car? Yes. Do you want just a car and a driver? Do you want a car with security? And I say a car with security. And that means when I arrive at the airport, there will be a car and a driver and a police officer. And this police officer will stay with me for the remainder of my stay. And it always hurts. It hurts because I know as long as this police officer is with me, there's somebody in whatever city I am in who needs police support who's not going to get it.
Yes.
How did we get there? And what should we do about this?
The same thing we've been talking. There's insecurity because governments need to tackle it. All over the world, studies have shown the more you put people out of poverty, the more you reduce criminality. I'm not saying there's no crime where where people are just like it is in America here. There's still crime here, but it's minimized because nobody's moving around with police. So the police are available. Whatever you do, they will appear because they're not there looking for big men to follow and everything. But how did we get there? We need to pull people out of poverty. And easiest means of pulling people out of poverty is education with skill. When people are gainfully employed, you reduce criminality.
During your tenure as governor, you made notable improvements in education and healthcare. What lessons from your experience can be scaled up nationally? We have to learn the good experiences in Nigeria all over the place, as much as there are some challenges. So what do we do?
The most important tool for development is education. Number one, can't beat it. The more any country is educated, the more developed it is. It's improving everywhere in the world, whether it's to China, to India, to this, and everything. So you need to invest in it.
And how did you do it in Anambra?
And the same thing with health. They say it's a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Your people need to be healthy. You need to look after people's health so they can become productive. That said, if you look at what is the most critical measure of development, HDI, and what is the components of HDI, life expectancy, education, literacy rate, and they can call it whatever, per capita income. In Anambra State, when I became governor, apparently we quickly adopted Millennium Development Goals because that was what was developed by United Nations then as development. So we didn't need to start looking for anything. What we needed was to develop strategy to ensure that we simultaneously implement all these goals across. So we're not there for showmanship. We're not trying to build big infrastructure. This is what you get in most African countries. They like big infrastructure. But you can't build physical infrastructure without building the human infrastructure. Because this sounds like this.
So HDI being a Human Development Index. And if I hear you well, what you're saying is we need to go back to the fundamentals. Just do the fundamentals, do the right thing, and you see the fruit.
The other ones will come. Because that's when you do education, you train those who will build the big infrastructure, those who will make the train run, those who will develop cars, so you don't go and have big cars on the road, have big infrastructure where you have not have the human infrastructure.
There is talking about great human development index, but also talking about great infrastructure. This brings to mind another element, which is China. China has been the master of big infrastructure across the continent. We're talking stadiums, we're talking roads, even houses of parliament now across the continent are built by the Chinese. How do you see the role of China within the economy of Nigeria, or even the political economy of Nigeria, to be a little bit more expansive?
Across Africa, I'm not against China supporting us. They can be part of it or going to borrow money from China to do it. But investing in non-critical areas is my worry. Jamaica went to World Cup without having formal national stadium. You don't need a stadium, you need a field. That's the difference, because when you even build stadium, your people can't afford it because they have no income. So they cannot pay to go and watch match. That's what is happening across Africa. So you need to, you see, this is something that is unique. You need to get them to love the game by playing it. You use it. Certain countries today, like Brazil, have used sports to put people out of poverty, push them out of criminality and everything. So you need open fields that are well designed. Like they need to build a formal stadium and expect people to come and pay to watch the game. They can't afford it. So you have to know that. So why are you going to borrow money to build it? We're borrowing money to build new airport structures and everything when you don't even have the passengers. They can't afford it. In the US, for example, with a population of about 360 million, the traveling public annually is nearly about over 1.4, 1.5 billion. So 4 times the population of the US is moving around. In my country, I can comfortably tell you that less than 5% of the people population, even too much, travels annually. You can't afford to fly. So you don't use the same thing. So what you need is basic functional airport with runway so the plane can land, not the building. Because it adds nothing. And you go and borrow money and do this, you don't have money to pay it back. You just said we borrow money for parliament. We should borrow the money to build primary and secondary school for basic education. We should borrow the money to build primary health care. Today, we have high infant mortality. We're now overtaking India, 7 times our population. So you need money for primary health care so people can be healthy, not to build stadium or build airports, which you don't need. I'm not against anything. You need to direct your resources to areas of need, areas of impact on the society. And these are the type of things I say. People say, oh, he demarcates Africa. No, I'm saying what we should do because we're doing the wrong thing. As a governor, people say to me, oh, the governor's mansion is not good. No, I have to fix school. I'm not there to build where I'm going to live. I'm to fix school. I want school to work. I want the children to go to school. I need to buy them computer. Go and ask HP. I bought the highest number of HP laptop ever bought by a government while I was there in the whole of Africa. That's what I need. Not my mansion. I'm not going to, I can sleep anywhere. But let the children go to school.
It's your view then that all these foreign investors, particularly states that want to partner with Africa for the development, African states should direct them where they will have the great impact of HDI.
So critical areas of development where the HDI will be improved, where there will be development. So I want to see primary healthcare working. I don't want to invest in stadium. I don't want to invest in building mansions that makes no meaning to anybody. I want to see impact.
In that impact seeing, then Africa is also given now, they are given a set of choices and options. You know, sometimes we call this great power competition, sometimes we call it middle power competition. How do you see Africa harnessing these new choices that they have on the table? So you have the Gulf Arab states, you have India, you have Turkey. There's a set of countries that have much more capacity to help. So they're coming, investing. Africa is one of the fields that they're all rushing to. There's a certain rush for Africa. How does Africa harness that?
Let me tell you, just like I just said yesterday, Africa doesn't need aid. Africa needs leadership. It's a country of incredible opportunity, a continent of incredible opportunity. We have over 30% of the world minerals. We're the second biggest continent by size. About 30 million square kilometers, out of which 60% of our arable land is uncultivated. No other continent can boast that. We have the highest, we're the second in population, with over 1 billion of our youth in their productive age. No other continent has that. That is what you need to invest by putting investment in education, in skill, in everything. Imagine if you can have this too. Nobody can challenge you. So you don't need aid, you don't need support. This work coming can come. There's nothing wrong in borrowing. You can borrow. You want to use the money you borrow for. You borrowing for consumption and you borrowing for investment. If you borrow money for investment, you pay back. And that's it. If the person did that, it will add value. But if you borrow for consumption, you're finished.
The model of the state, I talked about it earlier a little bit, talking the state being predatory, is a model that was adopted from the colonial days. The colony became the state. The colony was predatory. The state is going to be predatory. Today, where do you see the need to reform the state fully so that A, is not so centralized as it is everywhere else, because the colony was centralized. So it's not all about exploitation, because that's what the goal of the colony was. How do we build states that are responsive to the people? Is that too late, or Africa need to go back to the drawing table?
No, it's not too late. That's when coming and talking about leadership. In the leadership that will rise to their responsibility to care about the people. What you see in Africa is cumulative effect of leadership failure over the years, where there's just nothing wrong. Africa, like I said, is a continent of incredible opportunity. Easy weather. We have best weather. Easy environment. With everything, the food, available food so that people can eat. So what we need is leadership. There's nothing wrong with that environment, anything. The only thing that we have that is lacking leadership. We need leaders that can rise to their responsibility. Not like Chinua said. They can rise to their responsibility, do the right things, less corrupt, because corruption kills everything.
Corruption kills everything. There is hope. Where do you see, if you were to look into your crystal ball of the next 30 years, are you optimistic about it? Are you pessimistic? Where do you see the change coming from?
Leadership. That's a critical thing. If you get it right, you get a leader that understands the damage of corruption. Corruption kills entrepreneurship, because nobody thinks in a corrupt country. It kills professionalism, it kills hard work. You can turn people to understand they need to be productive. You can get the young ones. You build a society where people's hard work, energy, talent will match up their opportunity.
On that note of leadership and more leadership, I'd like to thank you, Governor Peter Obi, for joining us today and sharing your perspective with our listeners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. We want to have more conversations about Africa. Tell your friends. Subscribe to our podcast at Apple Podcasts. You can also read our analysis and report at csis.org/Africa. So long.